Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Mrs. Salzer.
Here.
Mrs. Egan.
Here.
Ms. Davenport.
Present.
Mrs. Callen, absent. Mr. Hillman, absent. Mrs. Lamel, absent. Mrs. Petropoulos.
Here. Okay, we have two extra guests back here. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Deontay. I'm on the bank custodian at Ridgewell.
Okay.
I'm
And,
Lisa Lockwood. I'm the building rep at Ridgelawn.
well, welcome. Anybody else I missed? You guys are here all the time.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. We have the school improvement?
Yes. Yep. Yep. So our admin team is going to be presenting today the fall assessment data and also kind of our school improvement report, what we've been looking to do and what we're going to be looking to do moving forward. So I'm going to start off the presentation before handing it off to our building administrators. You'll see up here everyone who makes up the team. That slide's been up there for a little while, so I'm sure you've had a chance to take a look at that.
Too much?
I think that's okay. I think 2 is too much. Yes. We are in our 5th year of our strategic plan. We actually just started. January of 2020 is the 5th year. And so that is where we are still at. We are looking at finance and facilities and technology and culture and curriculum and instruction. And those are the things that for the last 4 years we've been moving forward. And that is what we want to continue to do, continue to look at for this year. But we also have to, at times, stop and take a look at where we are and reassess that. And we can't just say, well, let's keep moving forward. I'm sure things are going fine. We really need to take a look at how we're doing that. And the school improvement process, for those of you who have seen this before and been on the board for a while, you've seen this chart before. And it's really important to keep coming back to that school improvement is not just something that you do, hey, we have an institute day, let's do school improvement. It's got to constantly drive everything that we are looking at. It's reviewing that data and then deciding what changes need to be made, celebrating successes, and just continually going in that circular motion. And it really has to become part of the culture, and I feel that it has been here in 127.5. I'm sure it wasn't that way when it first got started, but just in talking with everyone, they understand the process. And you need to look at different types of data. You can't just talk to everyone and say, oh, how's it going? And some people say things are going great, and other people say it's not going so well. You have to get that type of data along with your facts and your assessment numbers, and really to be able to combine those two pieces to get a full picture of where we're at. Implementing successful change. This also should not be a new slide for those who have seen this presentation before. But to be successful, you need to have all 5 of these things in place: the vision, the skills, the incentives, the resources, and the action plan. And anyone who has worked anywhere before and tried to improve something, and when you're missing one of these things, you know that it doesn't end up well. If you're missing the incentive to do something, people are going to go really, really slow. If they don't understand the why behind it and buy into that, they're going to drag their feet. If you just all of a sudden start putting things in place without having a vision, people are going to be confused as to, well, why are we doing this? We might accomplish and get there, but if we don't understand what the vision behind it is, it's not going to have sustained success. So our 2 district-wide assessments, we have MAP, where there are 4 versions given, and we are now in our 7th year as a district administering that test. It looks at both growth and achievement, and it is used across the entire United States. At least locally, I would say like 80 to 90% of the districts around here use this as their assessment. We also have IAR, which is replaced PARC from last year. PARC, it's about a 1/3 shorter than PARC. And other than that, they kept saying, we're going to change this test, we're going to change this test. And in the end, it came down to it was a 1/3 shorter. And that's been a very controversial test. I mean, We've had parents all over the state who try to get their kids out of those tests, and it's intended to measure growth and achievement, but again, it's been filled with that controversy. And one of the hardest things for us, and I'll get to it again later, but comparing it when they keep changing it, and originally you were supposed to get the results really, really quickly. And I will say the state did a better job this year of getting that back to us, whereas in the past they'd be like, oh yeah, we'll have it to you middle of the summer, and then it's like October and you're still waiting for it, and that doesn't help us as a school. And then at the bottom, the ESSA changes. The biggest difference, I'm sure many of you still remember hearing the No Child Left Behind, and then it moved into ESSA. And the biggest difference was it went from federal control back to the state level. And that's something that I think is important. I think we can all appreciate when we have more local control over the decisions that we make. And when you're doing those in good faith, that's when it's powerful. We also have the Illinois Science Assessment. The Illinois Science Assessment is now 4 years old. Here in an elementary district, they take it, our students take it in grades 5 and 8. It's based on the new generation science standards. We are finally receiving the results for those. I think the first year they gave it, like, they were already starting to take the test again the next year, and we still hadn't received results. It's really hard to grow and figure out where your areas of weakness are. And where you're being successful. Like, there was no way to figure that out. And again, that is intended to measure growth and achievement. And so this, our last 3 years of our science, you'll see on the very bottom there, in the first year, we only had 38% of our students who were proficient in science. The state average was at 51%. The next year, we closed that gap tremendously. We got all the way up to 47%. And then you'll see last year that slid back a little bit. Everyone in the state scored a little bit lower. And one of the things we've kind of talked about as an admin team is that was our first year of implementing a new curriculum. And even though we do think it's the right curriculum for us, we do see that a lot when teachers are not as comfortable with something at first, that we expect there to be a little bit of lag, but it's our job to make sure that we decrease that time that it takes to get back to where we want to be. Some overall thoughts on data. We really, as a district, should be proud of the accomplishments that have occurred. Even from coming from the outside and looking at what has been done since that strategic plan has been put in place, there's been really amazing work in getting people in the right mindset to do good things. But that doesn't mean we're done. A lot of work still needs to be done. We have been extremely underfunded. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone in this room. Last year was our second year that we received our evidence-based funding. We are still waiting to get all of our evidence-based funding for this year. But even saying that, we are still only receiving 55% of the funding that the state says is required to educate our students in a proper way. So even though it's been great, the things that this district has added, whether it's assistant principals and social workers and bringing back music and arts programs, those are great. But just imagine what we would be able to do if we were at even 90% of what we want to do. So you can't use that as an excuse, but it's a fact, and we need to be cognizant of that. So when we look at our map data for the fall, and this is comparing the fall of 2018 to our fall of 2019, there's a lot of information on there. What I really want to draw your attention to are the bars at the bottom. The most important thing to see is that little diamond, and you want the blue bar to be above that diamond. And that is showing, the diamond is the projected growth at each grade level, where we are projecting those students to score. And when the blue bar is above that, that means that they are scoring beyond what the test thought they would, which is great. Obviously, when the blue bar is below that, that is concerning. And I'm going to flip to this other one real quick, but I'll come back. So that is our math, and then you will see again in our reading. And I know the first time I looked at it, as I'm sure your eyes are immediately drawn to third grade, because that's the one area that stands out. And in talking with everybody and trying to figure out what's happening in third grade, because when I go back and look historically, we see the same thing. And there's a big change in the test, from the test being read to them having to read it themselves. And we've been talking about different ways we can minimize that. Do we start in the spring, having them try to read their own test, different ways that we can try to make sure that the data is a little bit more representative of what they know in that content and not just what they're able to understand from reading it to themselves. So a lot of the next slides kind of go through picking out pieces from the data, and I can always go back to these if you want to see the visual. So what are our big takeaways from that? First of all, these are common core aligned tests, so we know that this is what we should be teaching. So it's not just a random thing that they receive. And overall, we're finding that the MAP scores are higher than our IAR scores. And that's not surprising, because these are things that we have a little more control over. With the IAR test, you still don't really know exactly what's going to be on it from year to year. And it's just basically 5 days of testing that you're doing in the spring. MAP is something that our students have been doing from a very early age. They understand the test. And so again, that's not surprising that those are a little bit higher. Our ELA scores are higher than math, and we see the same thing on IAR and on MAP. What I am happy about is 6 out of the 8 grade levels are hitting their growth projections in math. And the same is happening in ELA. So what the test expects them to grow, we are hitting that. And outside of 3rd grade, the ones that had missed it are really, really close. It's not like a wide gap. The 3rd grade is still a fairly large gap. 4 out of 8 grade levels are outperforming their peer groups in ELA. And so what MAP does is it looks at schools that have very similar students as far as economic background, EL population, things that they can kind of coordinate together to say, this is what schools like this usually end up scoring. And so 4 out of 8 are outperforming in ELA. And when I was looking back at the data from 2017, only 2 out of 8 were in math. We're outperforming their peer groups, and we're now at 5 out of 8. So even though we all know that those math scores, we need to increase them, it is nice to see some progress even farther than they would predict. And obviously, as we've talked about, we're still seeing that dip from 2nd to 3rd grade. Our Illinois report card for 2019, it includes IAR data as well as DLM, and DLM is the dynamic learning maps that special ed students will take instead of taking the IAR test. It was released to the public, the report card, on October 30th of this year. And what we really need to do to determine is use the MAP data, the IAR data, running records, student portfolios, different things that we can use to see, are we making the progress we want to make? And one of the areas that we've talked about as an admin team and with our teachers that we feel that we can really improve on are our local assessments that we're using in the classroom. So for math and science and ELA, having assessments across the district within grade levels that you're not going to see a difference between what Central is doing and what Lawn is doing. And to be able to see, are they getting the same education? Where are we at with this? Are they learning what we need them to learn? Because we can give those assessments and it's part of our curriculum, and are they getting what we're teaching them? Whereas on an IAR test, you don't know if they're even testing what has been taught the way the state has rolled this out at times. Again, we do have concerns regarding IAR and whether the scores are a true and valid representation. They continually change the format, so it is hard to compare from year to year. And I'm going to show that in another slide. But some other things from the report card. We do have a very high mobility rate. We have a high low income rate. We're at 64% for the district. And there is a 90% correlation when they've done research that shows if you're high low income, your scores are not going to be as high. The EL population continues to grow 3% over the last 2 years. And that doesn't sound huge, 3%, but when you look at our student body, that's about 42 students. That's 2 classrooms then that might have people in there where their first language is not English that we didn't have 2 years ago. So those are some of the things that we are trying to account for. The IAR overall performance is consistent with past years and similar to other districts in the Eisenhower Cooperative. And we still have our subgroups of special ed, EL, and low income and males that are underperforming. And unfortunately, that is true across the state. Usually when districts are finding areas where they're coming up low in subgroups, those are the ones that they're finding. And then last year, our 8th graders, 14% of our 8th graders did pass algebra. Talking with Mr. Youngberg, this year, if all the students who are in it pass, we'll be at 19%. So almost 1 out of every 5 students in the 8th grade class will have passed Algebra 1. So that is nice to hear. This is where we fall within the rest of the Eisenhower Co-op. And you'll see on here we have overall test performance. We tied for 6th out of the 9. And it looks like it's blocking it, but that first category after the overall is low income percentage, and then the EL percentage, and then the mobility rate, people moving in and out of the district. The high school does not take the same test, but we still wanted to show what percentage of 218 is considered proficient in their test. So I'll leave that up just for a minute if anyone has any questions.
So I have a question. So I know it's talking about like the percentage, but we don't know if these have the same dynamic as we do, correct?
As far as like for an EL population?
Yes,
or
exactly.
Like what? Yeah.
You know, it's easy to get 33% when you have like, 10 and you have 3 versus 300 and you need 9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure. So that's kind of,
Yes.
it's a comparison, but maybe not necessarily.
Yeah. And when I talked, and just so you know, Leanne has to leave to go to the village because their kids are doing the pledge and she'll be back. So when we talk about the difficulty of comparing tests, one test was PARCC and one was IAR on this. And obviously we went down in our one score, but when you look at this, you would anticipate that our scores would have gone down even more. All you do is look at this and don't dive deeper into the data. And I just wanted to throw this up there so we really talk about, we can throw charts and graphs on there, and we talked about the importance of knowing that quantitative data, but unless you couple that with qualitative and have that discussions about where we're at, you're not going to see the overall picture, and that's why we really need to take a look at both. So what is the plan for improvement? And really at the board level, that's what we should be concerned with here. And it's continue to implement the strategic plan. And now that we have all this data, when we are sitting here in January of 2021, and it's time to do our next 5-year strategic plan, not just trying to remember what happened, but taking that data with us and saying, what can we map out for the future and to implement that within the plan. I think that's really, really important for us to take a look at. And then from the district level, update and align curriculum. I talk all the time about building capacity, that I feel we are on the right track, but we have to continue to build that capacity within what we are doing. One of those things is our math. We are going to be talking in February about a curriculum update in math. In reading and writing, we continue to look at coaching and having that discussion of, are we at that point where we have people internally who can fill those roles as coaches, or should we still be looking outward and having consultants come in to help us with that? Future Ready, I've been really happy that we've started with our second group of Future Leader Corps. I had 2 of them present to our first year teachers, and that's exactly what we want. We want teachers to start becoming leaders and to owning their own education and coming in and to teach each other. That's what you want to see. And setting the vision and the program structure for EL. I think it's been huge that we now have an EL director just for this district, and I think that's going to help us set the vision moving forward, and we're hoping for some sustained success with that instead of looking at someone different every year. And like I said, I really think having someone here full-time is going to help that. Along with that, reviewing the differentiation process. So looking inside the classroom of what are we doing with students who both need extra support because they might be struggling, as well as those who are above that, and we need to be differentiating for them to push them so that they're succeeding. Those are 2 things we need to look at. And then at the school level, and that's what they're going to be talking about, is really tying it all to the district. It's not going to help if we have a great district plan and then we have 3 buildings all doing different things. That's not going to shift us where we need to go. And then these are the things that the principals will be talking about: fostering effective relationships, instructional leadership, embodying visionary leadership, and then just as I was talking about, really developing that leadership capacity within the district and creating sustainable change. The goal of every administrator should be, if they leave tomorrow, that the things are going to continue to happen. And it wasn't just because they were good at talking and people wanted to follow them, but they truly believe in it and that they're going to be able to follow it. Just want to make sure there were no questions for me before I pass it on to the principals.
Quick question.
Yes.
On the analysis page for the park and the IAR,
Yes.
is that the percentage of students meeting?
Meeting or exceeding? Yes. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Findlay Junior High. I'll give them the clicker. All right, there you go.
Thank you, Dr. Thorne. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Youngberg. I'm the principal of Findlay, and this is Julie Bazian, our assistant principal. As you can see on our slide, we have a large group of members on our team for school improvement. We have every grade level team leader represented. We have each content area represented, EL, special ed, and I can't say enough about how much work this team really has put in. And some really good things have come out of this process and great conversations have been had. So I just want to give good full credit to the whole team. First question, what are some ways we connect with our school community? Obviously communicating with them, being transparent, being visible both in the hallways and the classrooms out in front of the school. Also connecting with our local government and our business. Bringing them into our buildings, celebrating with them, whether it's Enchanted Backpack, Veterans Day. We want to make sure we're getting them into our building, and we're also going out to do the Pledge of Allegiance like Leanne's doing right now. But accessibility, building relationships, and then creating opportunities for positive experiences are always things we're trying to do and build our school community. Areas of teaching and learning that you can lead in your school. We've had a lot of initiatives over the years, and we've built on a lot of those, and we're continuing to build capacity within Findlay Junior High School. Some of these things are CHAMPS, SEL, PBIS, and curriculum work. Other things are working with a diverse environment. Learning partnerships such as the Future Leader Corps, like Dr. Thorne said, our math partnership, District 218, we had our articulation today, and then our SIOP training as well for our EL students. Building on that positive climate, setting a good tone and teaching our kids a lot about goal setting and developing a growth mindset. Those are things that we try to instill into our kids every single day. Professional development, and definitely over the years, our team and the leadership team has taken a lot of that alongside learning. Learning together as a group, building our capacity, implementing those new Common Core standards, and being the best that we can be with those things. So those are just a few of the many of areas that we do lead within the building, and our teachers have taken on a great leadership role within that, which has been very powerful and great to see.
What are you hoping teaching and learning looks like in your schools, and how do you communicate that vision? So for us, that 21st century learning, students leading their learning, that it's not just the teacher standing there teaching, but when you walk into classrooms, that the students are working together and the teachers are kind of just guiding that. Digital learning incorporated regularly. I think we have seen such an increase with that, with our partnership with the FLC, that Future Learning Corps. Staff differentiating, instruction and supporting students' diverse learning needs. So we have co-teaching with our special ed population, we have bridging EL teachers coming in, so we have all kinds of supports for all of our students in our building. How do we communicate that vision? For one, just being present in the classrooms daily, walking around, knowing what's going on. Communicating vision through the school climate, so promoting that positive school climate, greeting our students daily when they come in, asking, how their day was. If you kind of can feel that there's something off, making sure that you're making those relationships and connections there. And then Jeff had mentioned earlier, possessing that growth mindset. That's something that we've been working on for the last 2 years at the junior high. Really trying to set that precedent of that you can do something, or you just aren't doing it yet, that everybody can do something, and setting those goals to get there. And then how do you build leadership in your school? So I think the first one, it says set conditions for success, so allowing for that to happen. But I think the second bullet point is key, that trust and support. So having the trust and the support, I think, from the administrators for the staff, and the staff feeling that way with us as well. We have the team leaders, our school improvement team, which is made up of our team leaders, the amount of committee work, the teachers coming in and putting the time in and the effort in to make the initiatives that we have be successful, and rolling that information out to the staff, being transparent with the staff and having those conversations, create opportunities for experiences, allowing our teachers to be able to come up with ideas and things like that. Consistency and leading by example.
And then last question here, what will be your fingerprints on the building after you leave? You can see a few of the different pictures. If you haven't been in Findlay Junior High, I'd encourage you to get in there and see a lot of the new stuff we put up on the walls. And you know, one of the biggest things we're harping on every day is how can we make Findlay more welcoming and fun for our kids and staff. And I think if you really own that as a whole and as a SIP team, you can really change a culture in a school. So we've been really trying to hone that one in. Productive change, strong willingness to accept and embrace change. If there's one thing I can say about Findlay teachers and staff, is they are, if you've got something you want to roll out that's good change and they buy it, they will do it. They take change and they run with it, and they do an outstanding job with that. Staying student-driven and data-informed, staff feeling valued, accepted, confident, and supported, collaborative community and staff and students, more or less creating that true learning environment of a whole community of staff and student learners. And then lastly, I think this is very key. When we see students graduating from Findlay, we want them to be confident, and we want them to have a growth mindset and knowing that they can achieve and will achieve success. Any questions for the Findlay team at this time? All right, so I will hand it over to Ridge Central.
Thank you. So one of the things that Dr. Thorns had said in his presentation is what we hope as a district with our school improvement is each of the schools are very similar and they're on the same page. So you'll see a lot of similar topics and similar bullets between all three of us, which I think just goes to show how we're communicating and making sure that some of those bigger items are aligned in the district. So these are our teams. We have our school improvement team and our team leaders. So kind of different levels. We've got a bigger group that meets to talk about more school improvement type things, and then the team leaders who are really getting into the trenches and working with the teachers weekly on their team meetings and kind of disseminating that information down in different leadership groups. There are some crosses between the two of staff, which is great because then we can communicate and have that collaborative effort in both of those meetings, and we're talking about similar things. So what are some of our ways we connect with our community? Very similar to what Jeff had said, the biggest thing that we see is helpful is presence. Whether it's through communication, whether it's morning supervision, morning outside welcoming students in with traffic. At the end of the day, 4:15, again, being out there, being present, communicating. That's something that we've really tried to improve this year with communicating with school messengers, sending those out, sending out surveys to our community members, to our parents. Please gather, getting that feedback and then making changes based on that feedback that we've gotten from them. Bringing parents in to collaborate on different things that we're trying to bring into Ridge Central, having them be a part of yearbook or having them be a part of our library and incorporating kind of that whole community feel. It just doesn't stop with the four walls of our building. It really goes out there and reaches out. We've got probably 300 books about kindness from Miss Irene sitting on our shelves from the library because that was something that we wanted to incorporate. Our teaching and learning and what can we lead. So Jeff had mentioned a lot of the top things, and with Demetra and I being fairly new in the district, we're obviously learning alongside the staff with these things, which is great for them to see. If they see their leaders being a part and attending these meetings and attending this professional development, they then value that time and they see that it's meaningful to us as well. So we'll sit in on these. We'll sit in on the professional development, sometimes even coaching if it's applicable for us to be a part of that. We're learning alongside, but then we can also move the staff members in a direction. But I want to draw your eyes and attention to the bottom four, because this is really what it's about. It's about that climate and building that climate and culture in a positive way, establishing that, because if you don't have that, the top is not going to work. If you don't have that base support for the staff in diverse learning or diverse learners, differentiating our instruction and making sure the staff feels supported in that, and then collaborating with the staff. We attend team meetings, weekly team meetings with every single grade level. We have staff meetings every single week. We have team leader meetings every other week. And just that constant togetherness and collaborative feel, it has a really great approach to making that positive culture and then kind of trickling back up into those other partnerships. What are we hoping that teaching and learning looks like? Much like what Julie had said, we definitely want that 21st century learning happening. And what does that mean, really? Because that's kind of that hype. We constantly are talking about, we have 7 hours with these kids. There are so many hours of the day, and there's so much that they're expected to know by the end of kindergarten, by the end of 5th grade. And the teachers don't have all of the time to fill all the gaps and teach the grade level, the standards, and also worry about them social emotionally and worry about them as whole students, holistic, focusing on them as kids and play and all of that they require. And so what we try to model for our staff, and what we try to talk about with the students and the staff, is that your learning doesn't just happen in the 4 walls of Grade Central. And your learning is not only held in the teacher's hands. And so we encourage the students to, when they have an idea, when they have a question, when they have a thought, go out and research it, go out and think about it. I can bring an example of, we had a 5th grade student this year ask if she can get a group together to do a mashup dance in front of everybody. And that's what we want, is we want these students to feel, like Jeff said, empowered, to be able to speak for themselves, to incorporate themselves into our building, but then also take what they're learning and kind of spark that interest outside of the building as well, and research things and bring it in. And we had a lot of that last year, and we're going to continue to encourage our students to do that. And then we're going to do, what we hope for teaching and learning, that 21st century, what we're going to do is really be not only communicating that, but being present and continuing to encourage the students, because that's really what it's about, that they need to be doing that.
So Adam mentioned building leaders in our school, and we talk about it all the time, how we can get everybody involved. So it's not just us, we are a team collectively, not just the teachers, not just the students, not just the parents, not just the stakeholders. We're all part of it together to build leadership. One thing that's not on this list is the students. And Megan just mentioned a great example of that. We're trying to build leaders in our students as well, so that they start taking the reins, where they see us modeling that leadership, just like the teachers, and then they're taking the reins. Can we do this now? We had another student ask if they could start a talent show again. And
the playground.
The playground.
All of that was stemmed from students. The smart labs, that was stemmed from a student. That's all very important.
Making the PD meaningful, not just ongoing, but meaningful. And so we're constantly asking the teachers, what can we do to make it meaningful? What do you need help with? What do you need support with? And really connecting with them through those grade level team meetings that we go in every week. We're building that relationship with them, that trust, and we're really doing whatever we can to, it's not just about us, it's really all about everybody together making a difference in the school. And, oops, I got backwards. The fingerprints on our building after we leave, you could see those beautiful children. They're really our fingerprints. And the handprints are on those buddy benches. We would love to see every child's handprint on every wall in our building, because they're the ones that are going to leave that legacy. It's really not us, again, it's about them. We talk all the time about what can we do to make our building not a building, but a family. And we go out of our way to make parents and students and teachers feel welcome, That's, in my eyes, and I know Megan's eyes too, that's the most important thing. They have to feel welcome. They have to feel like they're in a positive setting. It's not just about the academics. It's about the whole child. And how are we focusing on all of the facets of that child? And so the staff and students achieving and growing at high levels, those are our expectations. We're setting those expectations high and the bar high. We don't really care to hear, well, what if our kids can't get there? It's not acceptable. They will. And so we set the tone high and our expectations high, but we also look to parents. We value, we just sent out a survey, we look at every single one of those responses, and then we are going to be reaching back out now to the parents that have offered to volunteer and help with the yearbook club and coming into the classrooms in the library. And so really we're all in on this together, and we are all here for the students.
And one of the things that we'll end with is, in the morning, Demetra and I are both outside for morning drop-off. And there's nothing better, talk about a fingerprint, there's nothing better than seeing the kids running in the door, running to their doors, whether they're right at the entrance, coming in early and being there and being ready. I mean, our tardies have gone down tremendously, and I think it's more because of the social emotion, the welcoming environment, the good mornings. That is
running hugs.
Yeah, that's a fingerprint that you can't measure, really. So we are passing it to a lone soldier there, Brian, from Ridge One.
Thank you. So my partner is not here. She may sneak in at the very end. We've gone through so many different changes after the past so many years. Being the, I don't want to say the oldest one because it's not the oldest one, the senior person for our administrative team.
And I remember a lot of those students.
Speaking as a teacher and then speaking as an administrator, this district has grown so much and come so far, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. And as we talk about our people that we have here, one of the most important things is the people that we have here as we look across our district are people that have come and joined us and stayed. And the longevity that we have in this district, I'm kind of jumping to the end to the fingerprint part of it. I want that to be one of my fingerprints, that I have been here and I have seen the growth and I've been part of that, and I'm proud to be part of that. So for our school improvement plan for our building, we have so many different people that are involved, and this is just a snippet of it when we talk about our school improvement team leaders as well as our grade level team leaders. And again, as Megan had said before, some of these people do cross over, which is really nice. And then we have some other faces that are too, and sometimes you're having these conversations like, wait, were you in that meeting for that? Because we're talking so much, you kind of lose track. But we have really great people, and this is just a snippet of who's represented. When we're connecting, you know, those instances when you are inside and outside of the building, or, you know, I'm at the front desk and I'm answering the phone, and people are like, this is Sataro, you're answering. Yeah, all of us have the same responsibilities. We all have the same jobs, and I want people to be able to see all of us as there and as servants for their children and for what they send their children to us for. We need to be there. We need to be there when a parent walks in the door and they are having a meltdown and they need to talk to you now. That can't wait. That's something that we do need to do that. We need to do that for students when they're coming in and they're needing someone. That's not something that you can say, I'll get to you later, or else someone else will check in with you. We have to be visible. We have to be able to be there for our kids. I think we've done a great job over the years at really doing our communication piece of it. You know, between school messenger and those pieces we have for Ridgeline, we live and die by Class Dojo. Just about all of our staff members are on Class Dojo, and we get so many responses, and we have that opportunity to send out information there, and we tend to lean on that sometimes even more than Twitter, because it's private too, and it's only our families that are seeing that. But we've had such great communication. The other day we had to have a cancellation of an after-school activity. We were able to get it out on Dojo much quicker, and all these parents are responding right away. So again, being there, the collaboration, which we're going to touch on in a couple slides, There's so many opportunities to bring everybody in and to have really great discussions. Those decisions should not be made by the administrators. They should not be made by just a few. We need to be talking about these decisions together. And recognition. You know, we all like to hear that. Great job. We all like to have that pat on the back. And sometimes we take those things for granted. So we've been making a conscious decision to stop and pause, and where are different ways that we can build in different incentives, different recognition. We have a couple of them listed there. Dr. Thorns was over the other day, right before the kickoff of our MAP testing. We introduced our Ridgeline MAP Olympics, where our students are having the ability to medal in MAP. They can earn bronze, silver, or gold medals based on performance. And the kids are super excited about it because we want them to be the ones setting their goals and seeing if they're achieving it and knowing that it's part of life to grow. I don't know if you need to hear about these same programs again, being the third building. We just have 3 buildings in our district. You probably are too. But it just shows the consistency as to what we are all doing. From every level of our organization, we're all working together in the same direction. Whether it's for Partnership for Resilience to focus on our kids and building trauma-sensitive schools, whether it's building of all of these content areas, whether it's our ELA with school-wide, MCMI for MAP. We have so many different programs out there, but as we said just a little bit ago, it's our whole staff that needs to come together to make that happen and to believe in the work that we're doing. 21st century classrooms. We want kids to be the center of everything that we're doing. We want them to be those decision makers, to really take charge of their learning. And the teachers have such an important role to recognize where their kids are at and what their kids need to help be those facilitators. That's sometimes a lot more work than just traditional teaching. Traditional teaching was, okay, I'm going to open up to page lesson 24, I'm going to deliver this lesson. Traditional teaching doesn't look like that anymore. We need to understand our students, we need to create student profiles, we need to meet them where they're at and help them realize what their needs are and how they can help make it happen besides the teachers just making it happen. And sometimes that's a shift for the parents too, to realize your child has to put in all this work too. It's not just the teacher delivering the instruction. The building leadership in our school, we are really so proud of all of the staff members that are involved, but we're going to take a step further. We've been making concerted efforts to make sure that our students are involved. We have, of course, advisory teams for our staff, but we're really proud of the work we've done with our children over the past 2 years by creating our student advisory teams, or our Ridgelawn reps, as we call them. Each classroom has a Ridgelawn rep. We have meetings once a month. We have agendas. I think it's on this next picture. I just have to, I'm going to jump. This is one of our meetings where we're all sitting together here, and I really thought I put this other picture in there, where we have one of our students at our very first meeting, who was a Ridgelawn rep last year. He actually stood up and he led the meeting. He explained to the rest of the kids, but let me tell you, this is what this is all about, and this is what you have to do. And he's a 3rd grader, so he was a 2nd grader last year. And then out of all of our grade levels for each of the buildings for that, they also serve on the superintendent's advisory committee. So Adam has come over to meet with our students, but we do have one from each classroom, which the kindergartners are getting really good at starting to find their voice and making some suggestions. If you look up on top, we've revised our logo in the Soaring to Success. This was part of our rebranding from last year into this year, and that all came out of the kids. And we're naming our eagle. There's a lot of interesting names that we'll be voting on, and we do need to get an eagle costume. I'm not quite sure who's going to be wearing our eagle costume, but this is all coming from our kids. So I just really wanted to highlight.
Oh, you're going to be bringing the buses in with the costume.
I'm thinking we might have a tall individual at our school that might be wearing that, right? Mrs. Lockwood? You know who I'm thinking of. But, so we want to make sure that we find these opportunities for our staff, as well as our students, to be the ones who are making those decisions and really guiding our school to where they feel it needs to go as well too. And actually, if you look on the right, this leads itself from our Safe and Civil Schools, our PBIS work. Each school had worked on their guidelines to success, and then we had voting on that as well too. So that those are Ridgeland's guidelines to success. And last but not least, we all want the same. We want our kids to grow. We want our kids to learn. We want to be able to have a place for them to feel accepted, to feel safe. One of our kids that joined us this year, and he has been in many, many schools and in a lot of different situations, and he's really struggled. His 5th grader said the other day, and we don't think he likes school very much, and we were shocked to hear him say, "This is my safe place. And this is where I want to be." And when a particular staff member was working with him and encouraging him, like, "You should have asked for help," he goes, "I don't know how that feels until now." That's our footprint. That's our fingerprint. That's what we hope that we hear. If we hear it from one kid, we know we make the difference. And we know the work we do, we hear it from many more than that. So that would be I can list lots of other things, but a child coming in and feeling loved and safe, and it's a place for them to grow, that's what we all want. So that's the change we all want to make. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Socorro and Carrie to cover our special area departments of EL and special education. He's the clicker. Oh, you're the clicker.
Hi everyone, so my name is Socorro. I'm very excited to have joined you. And with our EL team, we have 13 teachers and 2 parent liaisons. And
as you can see, I've listed a number of our special education staff. We're so proud of all the folks that we have working in all the different buildings. I could have went on and listed more folks. I've only got one of our cooperative professionals on there, our OTA, who's with us at Leeds Central, Jean Rare. There are others working part-time contractually with us from the cooperative too that contribute so much to servicing our students. Our special education department is really so big I couldn't fit it all on one slide. And it does take a team effort to get it all accomplished.
so as far as what are some ways that we connect to the community, it's through Twitter and Seesaw usage. As you will have seen the tweets from the teachers, they've gone viral and they're constantly communicating the great things that are going on in the classroom. Also through our BPAC meetings, our EL Storytime sessions, and family nights, which the next one will be February 20th. And we have planned and we're very excited about that. Another way that I just communicate within the buildings is by visiting, being present, and being visible, being supportive in any way that I can with the teachers, and helping out with the students as well.
Yeah, as far as special education, and this could apply to general education too, I enjoy just as much looking at the tweets that our teachers are sending out as far as all the great things they're doing in the classroom. It's wonderful when we don't get a chance to visit all of them across the district as often as we'd like to see what the kids are learning. And I think for their parents, it's probably a wonderful opportunity too that we've only really had for a few years here in the district. So it's a great thing to be able to really connect, to the kids in school. Because when my kids come home and ask them what they did, they don't tell me. This is a way where you can just see it for yourself. We continue to work with community, support agencies. A lot of this I'm referring to as far as social service agencies to help students that are struggling with, social emotional issues. And then as far as the Partnership for Resilience, it's even more broad, our membership with them. And I think those last 2 pieces there, what's really important is that membership. And I know Dr. Thorne's former district has joined. This is only our 2nd year, but I feel like it's become such a stronger thread that's part of the fabric of our district, being part of the Partnership for Resilience. And it's really it's brought a lot of us together in terms of seeing the effect of trauma on learning. And some of the important things that we continue to emphasize is devoting time for that at our early dismissals, so we can have, sometimes it's a self-care activity. Like Brittany did one about the importance of us getting enough sleep so that we can come here recharged and ready to, be there for the kids. And great things like that. As far as the Eisenhower Cooperative, it's wonderful to be a member of that particular group. Again, not just because of the professionals that they're able to send to help with some of our student-specific needs, not just because of the programs, but also, we had our district representative meeting today. So it's an opportunity for us to bounce ideas off each other. How are you doing this? How are you addressing this situation? So we learn from each other. We problem solve together, and that's where we become more effective, is when we do that.
And what are some areas of teaching and learning that I completed through the SIOP training for teachers, providing different types of workshops for professional development and continuous support in that way, collaborative discussions to identify different resources across all content so that we are all aware of what we're working with and the materials that we have so that we can share and work together in that way. Also, support for providing EL's authentic experiences of rigorous learning opportunities. So talking to the teachers as to how can we make the content more comprehensible for our students, but also just authentic so that it really does matter to them.
And as far as special education, that first piece I'm really referring to collaboration and problem solving in terms of those students that may be at risk in our district, those students that require special service intervention, as well as those that are gifted and need a specific plan that's going to address and challenge them. So I'm looking at that special services title more broadly. It's every student needs something just a little bit different. Obviously the core hits a lot of it, but even the way we're addressing that is changing. Like I said, moving away from the traditional, we're in special education always focused on individualizing, but there's so much differentiation that we can do in every classroom. And I think continuing to show our teachers how to better do that, is only going to make our kids' learning, that much greater. Another way I see my role as a leader in the district is to, help guide staff when they're not sure which way to go with programming for students. We've seen a big increase in change in our students in the past years I've been here. Virtual explosion in students with communication difficulties or developmental delays. So we're really needing to look at what can we do for them, and maybe different than what we have done in the past. So and constantly in the continuous improvement process, analyzing what are those needs, how can we respond best to them. And another piece of it is kind of looking at my role at the district, more of what are we seeing, the changes that are going on, what do we anticipate is going to happen in the long term, how do we prepare for it, and as we're going into the new strategic plan, I think coming up with some good objectives with that in mind as far as where we see the district going. And like Fran said, you've been here longer than I have, and it's come a long way since I've been here too, quite a long way. So I hope we continue to grow as a district as we have. I changed it.
I should wear my glasses. What are you hoping teaching and learning looks like in the district, and how do you communicate that vision? I strongly believe in collaborative partnerships so that we can provide differentiated learning to our students. And meeting, like Fran said, not only their academic needs, but also their social emotional. And also, what I communicate this is through the staff meetings, SIP days, BPAC meetings, and teacher growth plans. But I think also just having that foot in the door with the buildings, enjoying the staff meetings, and having conversations with the teachers is a great way to communicate that.
And I realized as I was talking on the last slide, I was really addressing the first point on this one too. Just that we really have to take a look at our students' needs in terms of embracing new tools. Sometimes that's technology through Future Leader Core, apps for training, again to help us differentiate and to really broaden our abilities and our approaches in addressing students' needs when we're planning their learning activities. When I think about emphasizing the problem solving and social interaction, I think those are those key skills that we want the kids to leave school with. It's like there's so much knowledge and information in the world, and it's so different than when I was in school where any kid has a phone in their hand and they can Google information about so many things they want to know. But they need to kind of be able to analyze that information, to problem solve it, to question what may be incorrect, what may be right, to have the reasoning capacity. I think that's where we need to build our kids for the future. I wanted to mention too, I was at the cooperative today, and as I was leaving, Nathan Hale had a really neat sign, or a message on their sign. It said students plus parents plus teachers equals success. And I thought how true, and how applicable to us as well, as we've tried to move toward getting that student input, trying to encourage that parent involvement. And as well as our teachers, continuing to grow through professional development. And with everyone working together, everyone contributing, we're going to go farther.
And how do you build leadership in the district? The first thing is to try to establish a system with academic and language supports for our students. The SIOP trained teachers, but not just the training, but also making sure that it's implemented and that we are applying it to our lessons. Strengthening our learning community to create opportunities for co-teaching. I've visited different classrooms where I've seen true co-teaching, where the teachers, you can tell the time and effort that went into the planning and how they feed off each other to provide really great instruction for the students where they're engaged. So that is something that I really look forward to working with.
And as far as special education, what I hope to see from my leadership is, helping those teachers to build their capacity, and granting them some more responsibility where, the first few years, for those of you who've been around, I ran every single meeting in the district. It got to the point where that was keeping me from really helping out with some of the other things that I needed to look at in terms of where do we need to go, directions we need to look at for change. So kind of training them, guiding them, kind of helping them know what are the expectations, and just being an open door for the staff to come to me with questions, being available and listening to those concerns. A lot of times they, just being there to encourage them can go so far because they are kind of reluctant, to kind of take that charge and go forth with it, and just giving them that, I have the confidence in you, you're going to do great, and they're a great group of professionals that we have working in each one of the buildings here, and we're so fortunate to have that. We still though have to look at, what is that ongoing professional development that they're going to need to continue to grow. So linking them up with that is crucial. And I think as far as looking at how we change and how we, we have a lot of discussion, but the importance of our team and committee work is, I think, invaluable, just where we have representative groups carving out time to get together to talk about where we are as a district and where we need to go. And we have to continue to emphasize the importance of that.
And the fingerprint program would be, again, the district-wide implementation of SIOP. I know that teachers have been, they've received professional development, but also just wanting to have a common language that is sustainable. That is something that we're going to see throughout, and that will cross over into different content areas as well. Also having high learning expectations for our ELs across the district and all content areas, but having those high expectations for all students as well. And knowing that the SIOP model works for every student.
Yeah, one of the keys that I hope to see is that, after I leave, I hope that I've encouraged staff to collaborate with one another. A lot of times, because I get to see what goes on in different buildings. Sometimes one building doesn't know some great things that the other is doing. I'll say, talk to them about that. We can learn from each other so much, and we don't even know the great wealth of, potential that we have amongst the groups that, teach throughout this district. So I think encouraging that collaboration between staff, between buildings, and between programs, too. Because a lot of the work, it can't be disconnected. We have to tie it all together. And I think we've worked toward doing that with, some of the, again, more recent ways we put our committees together. Make sure there's representative from EL, from reading specialist support, so that, we know what the other groups are working on, so that we can work more in tandem with each other. Another goal of mine is just really looking at how can we broaden that continuum of program supports, from at-risk through special education and through, academic enhancement and gifting. Still work to be done. So it's a great thing that I hope to continue to promote, and leave on after I'm gone, that it has a much broader spectrum of options for kids for their learning. One of the great things too that we've worked on the last few years is trying to promote keeping those kids in their home schools. That when parents are so they're always thankful for programs that we might need to send their kids to that aren't in the home school, but if we can do it for them in the home school, they're that much happier and more comfortable. So, and part of it's been kind of equipping our teachers to know how to work with these kids and to promote their success in their home school and general education settings as much as possible. So it's involved some paradigm shift and change, but I think it's been good, and we continue to have discussions about how to make it more successful. And one of the last pieces again is trying to teach the staff kind of that legal end of IP development, implementation. There's so much that goes into it, and it's constantly changing, as you know. But trying to just continue to train them up, give them suggestions to improve, and keep them in the loop on, how the paperwork ought to be done, correctly, so that we're making sure that, we're being legally compliant. Yeah, and that we really have meaningful plans that we're creating for these kids too, so. I think that leaves us now to final thoughts. Any questions for us as departments before we sit down and enjoy the rest of the presentation from the sideline?
So I just have 2 slides for final thoughts, just to kind of wrap it up, and it's not new stuff, but just kind of leave you with it. Sticking with that data-driven culture. Data has to be triangulated. We can't just look at 1 or 2 things. We have to look at things beyond these tests. And like I said, for us, that's running records, that's portfolios. And the biggest thing moving forward is getting our assessments in line in the classroom. So we can use those as data points as well. We need to look at both growth and achievement. You saw and you heard, we are making really, really good growth. There's no doubt. But there's also, when you look at the achievement, there's a lot to be left desired there. So we need to look at both at all times. We will continue to assess and align our practices to meet the ever-changing landscape. Fran talked about it. When she started, pass out the paper, open your book. If we were still stuck back there, there's no doubt we wouldn't be doing anything right for our kids. And all of our students can achieve and grow at higher levels. Whether they're already like maxing out on their scores, they can still keep going. And if they're really falling behind, we know that we can work to catch them up. And then our students and staff, and I mean this, coming in and I just finished 6 months here, they work extremely hard. And it's our job to continue to give them the right tools and the right resources to mesh those 2 things together. And it's important that we celebrate our successes and stop and do this. But I also think we need to take an honest look at where we are at and our areas of improvement. And the last statement on there, when we understand the realities of where we are and we see everything that goes into this, we really give ourselves amazing opportunities. It's when we're not being realistic and looking at what's actually going on that you miss opportunities. We have to be realistic and grab those and move forward. And watching this team up here presenting, I thought they did a really nice job. But we have a new principal at Findlay. We have, since the last time this presentation was made in 2017, we have 3 new assistant principals, and we have a new EL director and a new superintendent. And that's why it's really important that even though this presentation took about an hour, that we continually look at this. And because if we're not in that school improvement mindset at all times, that's when you start falling back and you don't continue to make that progress. Before we sit down and continue with the rest of the meeting, did anyone have any questions?
I have something to say.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have a fantastic staff here. The admin staff, I can't say enough. I've been around a long time, first through working here, and then as a board member for many years now, and I've seen the growth within our schools. As educators, we sit back all the time and it's okay, am I doing enough? Is there anything else we could do? We're always second guessing ourselves when we're in education. How much, we're doing all this stuff and what else could there, it just, our minds don't stop, okay? And the initiatives that all of you have put together are wonderful. And I love the leadership aspect, not only for yourselves and your staff, but for your kids. I mean, that's so important, setting the bar higher. There's so many that just don't do that. You gotta set it above to bring them up. You can't just set it here and hope they meet it. You gotta set it up and get them to come up with that. And I so appreciate it. The continuity between the 3 different schools is wonderful. Yet, in spite of the continuity that everybody has, you also have differences in the way you are doing things, which shows the creativity of each of you in the schools. The collaborative effort between the vice principals and the principals, I think it shows, and I think that's really special. And the team effort of individual schools, and then the 6 of you and I'm not leaving you guys out. You don't carry it. Yeah, I want to make sure you're included, but there's something to be said for the collaboration between all of you together and at each of your schools. So please, with the different methodologies, the strategies, the creativity, the programs, the initiatives and programs you guys are coming up with, I just want to thank you. I mean, I've seen it come a long way. You know, and Fran's right, there's a lot of longevity here with teachers, but we also have a number of kids, and we also have an administrator that grew up here, went to our schools, and now have come back, a number of teachers that have come back to work here also. And I think that's a commendable thing, too. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something unrelated to the substance? Yes. You guys are great speakers. Like as far as public speaking goes, you guys are really good. And usually, you know, I don't know. That's all I have to say. The substance was great. It was very motivational. You guys are great speakers.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed just like listening to you guys talk. There's nothing to success.
Presentations are well done.
Yes, you can ask something.
So, you mentioned several times, and I'm just curious, what you were talking about is implementing some summative/formative assessments across curricular and grade level to see through the two buildings.
Yep.
To make sure that they're aligning with what they're doing. So first grade at Ridge Central as opposed to first grade at Ridge Lawn. And that's something we do not have right now.
It is not, no, it's,
Okay, so
it's
this is
very
something,
hit or miss.
but you, ideally, doing something like this, you would still allow there to be academic freedom with the
Yes,
teachers.
so-
It would just be the end goal
Correct.
of how they're doing it. I think, okay, that's a
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's very important for the teachers.
Yeah.
They need to have the framework of where they need to get the students, but how they get them there, there's different good
Yes.
teaching practices, how to do that, and that's that academic freedom for the teachers.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, then I would be remiss not to put my plug in about making sure we're not testing our kids too much. And when you're giving too many tests and assessments, even if it's just a quick check-in, you're taking away from instructional time, and that is much more important than numerous data
It's
points.
definitely a balancing act at all times. Yep. All right, thank you guys very much. Close this down.
Try and get you guys out of I want to look at 5.0, approval for the consent agenda. We talked about the minutes from December 10th open meeting and December 10th 2019 closed meeting. And then we have financial reports, which I'm going to have to read all of these. Different payables and bills for public schools.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent.
And I appreciate that. If I could just interject, I made a typo that I caught. Under the payrolls and bills for Eisenhower Cooperative, voucher 1103 should actually be voucher 1112, and I apologize for the dollar amounts this evening. That was my mistake.
Still make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
Ms. Lammel.
Aye.
Mrs. Halsey.
Aye. Okay, the superintendent's report?
Yes, so first up, we have our PTA report, and in a couple weeks, on Friday the 24th, I have been informed that I will be playing in the staff volleyball game, so I've started to stretch already, so I'm very excited about that, and I don't know, Tirzah, if you have anything else to add. I know that's our big January event.
That's the big January event, and right now we also have the Domino's fundraiser that's going right now. And I highly recommend, if you want to get your hands on it, grab a kit or anything like that, and they will be more than happy to slay one of those. It's probably the biggest thing that helps the grants for the PTA, because every Domino's card, it's $10, $5 goes to the school. Okay, so it's a 50%, which we don't get in any of our fundraisers or anything like that. And there's not a lot of stuff to do. Domino's does all the work. They send it to us that way, it gets sent out. The kids even get prizes. I mean, how can you go wrong? And if each family just got one, it would make a huge difference, Okay, those big ones.
Great. The enrollment report is very interesting. The enrollment is 1,457 students, which is exactly what the enrollment was at the December meeting. That does not mean we have not had students transfer in and out. We have had a lot come in and a lot go out, but they have balanced each other out. And we're not able to compare that to last year's because last year's board meeting happened immediately, like when we came back from break. So there were not any enrollment figures for the last board meeting. Also included in your packet is the vacant positions and possible staffing needs. We do have our paraprofessionals. We have 4 right now that are out there. We did do an interview today and hopefully moving forward with that one. Kathy and I have also been interviewing for our benefits positions here at the district office. So we are continuing to move forward with that. And we also have a custodian position over at Ridge Central currently that is open that we'll be interviewing this week for. The mid-year review of the strategic plan and administrative action goals. We will take a look at that during the January study session. During our meeting today, as an admin team, we reviewed it and just kind of wanted to make sure we were right where we need to be. That will be a much shorter presentation for me, just kind of letting you know some adjustments that have been made and where we are. For 6.5, the finance and facilities meeting, we sent out a letter of interest in December to see who would be interested in it, and up to 2 board members are welcome for the committee. I know Nancy has already agreed to be on it. Fran is our administrator, and Carol Katz is our educator. And that first meeting will be before the study session at 5:15 on the 28th of January, yes. And then 6.6 is just an informational item, but it's a really important one. It's a statement of economic interest from Cook County. I remember every year, board members and administrators must complete the mandatory electronic form. It comes usually in the late winter or early spring, but per Cook County, they never really tell us when it's coming out. It just shows up in your email. As soon as we as a district realize that it's there, we'll let you know, because I know sometimes things like that can get lost, and it is important that all of us get that filled out. If you have any questions when it comes through, just let us know here at the district office. And then 6.7, the board discussion on the school calendar for 2020-21 school year. When this went out to the board, this packet on Friday, we had not yet received 218's calendar. Of course, 2 hours after it went out, 218 sent their draft proposal. And so we've had a chance to take a little bit of a look at it. I'm going to wait until it's been officially approved. They are hoping on Thursday night at their board meeting before we really lay out what's going to be in there. A couple things to note, though. You will see for winter break, their first day that they're proposing off is December 23rd, and then they would come back on a Wednesday in January. You'll also notice that their spring break is really long. And I didn't understand when I first saw it without the dates, but that Tuesday is an election day. So they decided to give them that Monday off as well. So those are things that we'll need to discuss and look at before adopting a calendar.
And the Sunday is Christian Easter Sunday.
Yes.
Not all Christians.
Yes. I just said, oh.
Yeah, and I believe Orthodox Easter that year is the 2nd of May, I believe I saw. So that's...
2nd of May?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, it's about 3 weeks after.
It changes each year.
Yeah. So those are all things we'll take a look at. I'll draft up a proposal, and we'll look at it as a board, and then we'll talk with the union as well, as always. So, right. And then my only other is a quick plug to the board for our board evaluation. The last time I looked, we were up to 3 board members who completed the online. We really want to get that done so we can kind of look at it and discuss it as soon as possible. So if you need me to resend the link, just let me know. I'd be happy to do that.
So you're all done?
Yep.
Kathy, self-juice?
Okay, over winter break, the Architects Studio GC walked through all 3 of our buildings, and they are going to be present at the January study session to present those results. And also, ISB has allowed, or granted rather, a school maintenance project grant. It's been several years since they have done this, and what it is, it's a matching grant. They will provide $50,000 in funding as long as the project is over $100,000. And as we always know, there's always work to be done, so this is an excellent opportunity to take advantage of that. We will also be having a meeting with Studio GC, Dr. Thorns and myself later in the week to discuss things we could get moving quickly. And in the February meeting, I'll actually asking you to retroactively approve that grant, because coincidentally, the grant is due the same day as our board meeting. So obviously, we will have to present that to the state prior to. So kind of looking forward to getting that and getting that started. The annual Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund rate has come out. It is actually a little bit higher than it was last year for 2020. The rate that the employer or the school district is going to need to submit for all IMRF employees is now 9.15% as opposed to 7.93% for last year. In addition, the IRS came out with their standard mileage for 2020. It's actually decreased to 57.5 cents as opposed to 58 cents for 2019. And just historically, we have always matched that rate, so later in the meeting, we'll be asking you to approve the new reimbursement mileage for our travel. The second quarter interest and township costs is available. The revenue generated on our fund balances was $35,666, and the corresponding expenses attributed to those were $15,145. And I am done.
Yeah. Okay, for 8.1 on old business is the second reading of a number of policies, potential board action to adopt and post for second reading.
If you remember in the December meeting, we had some policies that we needed to adopt right away because of the January 1st changing of the law. And then we had this nice small binder of all the other policies that we went over, and most of them are just very straightforward. So those are the ones that you would either be doing a second reading or waiving the second reading and adopting at this time.
Do we need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is that a motion to adopt?
Yes, I'll make the motion to adopt.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Mrs. Lamb?
Aye.
Ms. Davenport?
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye.
Mrs. Egan? Aye. Mrs. Salter?
Aye. New business, potential board action to approve a decrease in the mileage reimbursement from 58 cents to 57.5.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Egan?
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye.
Ms. Davenport?
Aye.
Mrs. Lamb?
Aye.
Mrs. Salter?
Aye. Potential board action to post for first reading the following policies. That has to do with compliance, expenses, court duty, personal record, family leave, resignations, discipline, employment at will, schedules, and evaluation, and controversial issues.
And the main thing, the main change in all of these policies have to do with us now having 2 contracts. So the wording in there would be, please refer to the applicable collective bargaining agreements. And then it would also say, for employees not covered by a current applicable bargaining agreement, and then it would go right into what our policy has currently been.
Okay, motion, right?
Yes,
We need
please.
a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Egan?
Aye.
Ms. Davenport?
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye.
Mrs. Lamb?
Aye.
And Mrs. Salter?
Aye. Opportunity for visitors to speak. Anybody would like to say anything?
You've probably said enough.
But you did it so well. Okay, President's prerogative, I already had my say, so I don't need to say anything else. Okay.
So we will be looking to adjourn a closed session for the purpose of discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performances, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body to determine its validity as defined in the Open Meetings Act. The discussion of security measures and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual, a threat, or reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, students, the staff, the public, or public property as defined in section 2C8. We will not discuss student discipline. We will discuss the discussion of pending or probable and imminent litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the district as defined in section 2C11, and the discussion of minutes of prior meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act as defined in section 2C21 for the purpose of review, approval, or release of such minutes at
7:49.
Get a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion. Ms. Davenport.
Aye.
Mrs. Lammle.
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos.
Aye.
Mrs. Egan.
Aye.
And Mrs. Salzer.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Nice job.
Reconvening the open session at 8:26. Item 15.1, potential board action on personnel consent agenda, substitute teaching list containing the names of Deshaun Rivers and Tashawn Marks. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye.
Mrs. Davenport?
Aye.
Mrs. Egan?
Aye.
Mrs. Lammle?
Aye.
And Mrs. Salzer?
Aye.
15.2, we have the notice of resignations. Brian Kunster, floating custodian, district-wide. 15.3, potential board action on resolution releasing closed session minutes and destruction of verbatim recordings 18 months and older.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mrs. Davenport?
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos?
Aye.
Mrs. Egan?
Aye.
Mrs. Lammle?
Aye.
And Mrs. Salzer?
Aye.
And if we can have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
It's at
We need a second.
I'll second the motion.
8:28.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 8:27, you said? Or 8:28?
8:28.